Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just woke up. I have my shift at the ball crushing factory in 3 hours. So, as you can see, in the work uniform right here, in the ball crushing uniform, 12-hour shift at the ball crushing factory. But before that, I wanted to make a video. See how dedicated I am to all 203 of you? Anyways, today's video is going to be about alcoholics and stoners and my thoughts on both. Spoiler alert, alcoholics way better. But stoners do have some things on alcoholics, and I'm going to get into that. So, number one, we have the worst of both. All right. So, stoners kind of got alcoholics beat on this front just because when you're a dysfunctional, extreme alcoholic, you're usually like beating your wife and children, and like you're violent. Rarely do you see a extreme alcoholic who is not violent. You see, and then the extreme version of the stoner is pretty much the alcoholic without the violence and sadness. Because, see, I grow up in Colorado. I live in Colorado currently, and I've seen many people have their lives destroyed by marijuana. And you see, when you're a dysfunctional stoner, you just kind of like lose all emotion from what I've seen, right? You don't really feel bad that your life is going down the shitter because you never feel bad about anything to begin with, and yet you could argue that being a stoner is somehow worse because, there's not as much like rehab, like a 12-step program for being a stoner, right? And nor is it seen as bad, which in this aspect, stoners usually don't beat their wife. So, or at least the marijuana does not cause you to beat your wife. Anyways, but one thing that alcoholics do have on stoners is what I call divine inspiration. All right. I'm 29 years old and I've been sober for about 10 years. But when I was drinking, sometimes I thought to myself as I drank the ichor of inspiration, I just thought divinely inspired. There's a reason we have a GOAT lineup. The alcoholics have a GOAT lineup. We got Winston Churchill. We got Ulysses S. Grant. We got my grandfather. He kayaked up the Yukon River. Absolute goat. But he died before I was born because he drank himself to death. Anyways, so when you drink, when you get super drunk, right? If you're an alcoholic, you be getting that divine inspiration, as I call it, right? You are inspired. Like when I was drinking, I felt like, I was creating all these plans and machinations. I felt emboldened to do things, to create. Did I usually follow through with those things? No. But like, I remember I would listen to, some sort of music, usually some like power metal or like, awesome music. And then I would feel like divinely inspired. And then I'd wake up the next morning, I'd be like, dang, how I was disappointed in myself with the fact that I would go through with those things when I was drunk, but not when I was sober. See what I'm saying? I don't know if that's just a me thing, but anyways, when I'm stoned, I just feel entirely dedicated to sensory pleasures without any motivation to achieve anything outside of my immediate field of experience, if that makes sense. Like when I'm super stoned, I just want to like jerk off and eat food, and that's all I want to do. And then I might listen to like some music. I remember I listened to ZZ once when I was stoned in high school. The anyways, listen to that song. Thought that was really good. But I don't want to achieve anything. I don't want to conquer nations. I don't want to further my ambition. You know, When I got drunk, sometimes I would make YouTube videos because I want to like make more YouTube videos, but they were horrible. A lot of unsavory things in those videos. But when I'm stoned, again, I just want to commit to the sensory pleasures and feel the best way I can, you know. So yeah, I think alcoholics definitely have that up on them as well. Next factor, we have the hell yeah factor. Okay, see, now alcohol is two in one. Sure, alcoholics may be beating their wife, which is bad. Not a bandit does not condone wife domestic domestic violence. But when you're drinking, so great, like have you ever been drinking with the boys, right? And then, you know, out of nowhere, your friend's like, let's just go walk in this random field. And then you walk in the random field and you find an abandoned barn and you just like start exploring this abandoned barn. Then all of a sudden you meet some other random kids there. Then they invite you to Colorado Springs. Then all of a sudden you're doing fucking Everclear shots out of an Asian woman's belly button, and then you black out. Then you wake up, right? You wake up only an hour later. So you're still drunk. It's about 8 a.m. at this point. And then you go to take a piss in a bush. And then somebody throws a sign at you for whatever reason. And then the sign hits your back and you get lurched forward. And since you're pissing right next to this bush with like thorns in it, one of the thorns just goes right into your ball sack and just cuts that shit open. Not like, like a surface level cut. It doesn't like cut the sack open. You know what I'm saying? And then you get a scar on your ball sack for the rest of your life. And then you get in the car and you go back to, normal Colorado. I'm not going to suppose, you go to normal Colorado, and then you go to bed, right? You lay down, and then as soon as your head hits the pillow, your alarm goes off, and you have work an hour later, and it's your dad's birthday. See, that's fucking awesome, dude. That if that were to happen to me, that would be fucking sick. But you know what stories I get? You know what stories I've had or I've been told when I'm stoned? Oh, we went to the park. We went to the park and like there's this really, we played basketball. You know what story I have? Oh, I panhandled in front of a gas station because I couldn't afford a Calypso Blue Island lemonade. Boring. I need more excitement in my life, and alcohol is the thing that substitutes that for actual excitement. If you live a very boring life, I would say, or if you want to live a more exciting life, put alcohol in there. Put alcohol in there. If you're unsatisfied, like because that's why I did it. I would start drinking because I was like, man, my life is so boring. And then I would start drinking, and then my life was like super exciting because everything was more exciting. Oh, on to my next point, feelings. All right. What is the worst way you can feel with both substances? I would argue that alcohol is worse. So they got this one on us. You know why? Because when you greening out is horrible. It's a whole different kind of like vomiting. Nothing's worse than having cotton mouth and vomiting at the same time. It's just disgusting. But when you black out, you could potentially do something that's life ruining. So it really depends on the person. So me, I still very much feel social pressure when I'm drinking. So, I don't usually like do anything that I would do when I'm that I want to do when I'm sober. Because when I do go to do things, I think about them before I do them extra hard because I'm drinking. Example, one time I was going to Fort Collins with some friends and I was going to the restroom. And the restroom, instead of being a normal restroom, this is honestly like a psychological experiment restroom. Hear me out. Because instead of the sinks being in the actual restrooms, they're at the front, and then the women's and men's restroom are to either side. So that's just a recipe for disaster. All right. So I go to take my massive dookie shit, and then these women come out from the women's side of the restroom, right? And they're taking pictures, and then they push me. They fucking push me, all right? Just to take their pictures in this public bathroom's mirror. Now, initially, you could say that because I was drinking, I was inclined to violence, right? But the logical thing to do, and that I did do, was not fight these women. All right. I am never going to hit a woman, nor do I think it's worth it to get in a fight over that. But since I was drunk, I had that inclination. Anyways, other people might have just gone on swinging right there. I know one of the people I knew, he would fight police officers when he was drinking. Really bad habit to have when you're blackout drunk. So if you're like that, I would argue that blacking out is worse. But if you're like me, where I'm a little bit more controlled, I would argue that greening out is worse because there's nothing worse than like throwing up. And you know when you get like everything tastes more when you're high, you know, and then when you green out, it just having that vomit taste in it. Having that vomit taste is just disgusting. But, anyways, I was kind of all over the place this video, but pretty much what I'm saying, alcoholics take the ichor of life and turn it into something beautiful, or they can, right? Oh, another thing I wanted to say is that alcoholics, they know that they're alcoholics most of the time. Like if you ask someone, "Oh man, you should really watch your drinking," or "You're kind of drinking a lot." Yeah, I know. I'm an alcoholic. It's not good for me. But stoners, being gay, using gay as a pejorative, not as a word to describe homosexual people, um, stoners are like, no, it's actually healthy for you. This is way better than alcohol. Did you hear that one clip of Snoop Dogg who said if you put two dudes with alcohol in a room, they're going to be fighting each other, but if you put two dudes with weed in a room, they're going to be, high-fiving and laughing? Ha, ha, ha. Those people are cringe, dude. You're killing. Weed is horrible for you, bro. And that's the whole point of why weed is worse than alcohol, because both abuses are bad. But with weed, you're smoking weed, you're totally unmotivated most of the time, and it's the killer of dreams, right? But alcohol can build dreams. Great men have laid their lives on alcohol, great men and women have succeeded through alcoholism. I can't think of anyone who's really like great, like maybe the dude who played Indiana Jones, probably some artists, but there's never going to be a Ulysses S. Grant who smokes weed, bro. That's never going to happen because these people are losers. And obviously, I'm paraphrasing a little bit. I know a lot of great stoners, a lot of great alcoholics. Anyways, um, you know, just remember, guys, we're all that we got. Anyways, I'm going to the ball crushing factory to get my balls crushed. Peace out.